Can your house be positively geared? The short answer is no. The long answer is yes. And in this video and this podcast, I'm going to explain why. Your house can actually be positively geared and increase your monthly cash flow in two main ways. And I'm going to cover these two main ways in this video and podcast. We will also look at whether or not your house can actually, in fact, become an asset. Robert Kiyosaki is very famous for his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm sure you've all heard of it, where he proclaims your house is not an asset. By making that statement, he means that your house is not producing positive cash flow and actually costs you money each and every month. He's not saying your house doesn't go up in value. That's a completely different story. But what he's saying is that an asset is something that puts money in your pocket every month. On the surface, he is 100% correct. But there are in fact ways your house can either produce positive cash flow or put you in a situation where your available cash flow has increased because of your purchase of that property. So I'm going to look at those two things, producing cash flow and improving cash flow. So let's look at number one, producing cash flow. A house can produce cash flow for you if you rent out part of that house. Now that may mean you rent out the entire house. That may mean you rent out rooms of the house. You might have a granny flat out the back that you can rent out to produce cash flow. Now this cash flow is coming into your bank account, and if that cash flow exceeds your expenses on the house, then it's obviously positively geared. If the cash flow is not exceeding the expenses on the house, then no, your house is not positively geared. The second way a house can improve your cash flow is by minimizing your costs. When you run a business, there's two ways to increase your profits. You can either generate more sales or you can lower your costs. And improving cash flow, I'm talking about lowering your costs. We're not comparing apples to apples here. We want to compare apples to oranges. We want to look at the cost of renting a property versus the cost of living in a property that you own. Let's say you live in an area where renting a 3-bedroom house costs you $400 per week. You would be paying that $400 per week anyway, whether you owned a house or not. If you can purchase a house where your repayments on the mortgage and all of your expenses come in at less than $400 a week, well, you're actually ahead and you've improved your cash flow. Even though your property is not technically positively geared, it is having a positive influence on your cash flow. So you need to look at whether or not you want to move into a house that you own as to whether it's going to improve your cash flow or not. In higher dollar areas where it's more expensive to buy a house, this will not tend to be the case. But what will happen, let's say you buy the house now and you're paying $600 a week in mortgage repayments and expenses instead of $400 a week. However, over time rents tend to go up and over time you can pay your mortgage down. So let's say in 10 years' time, rents in the area have gone from $400 a week to $800 a week. You've paid down some of your mortgage and you've redone your loan, and your repayments on the loan, you're now doing $450 per week. Well, you're now ahead $350 per week as opposed to renting. So you're better off $350 per week at this stage. So you need to look at it in those two ways. Can your house produce cash flow? And if it produces more cash flow than you're putting out in expenses, then the property and the house that you live in is positively geared. But for many of us, we're more looking at improving our cash flow. So if the amount that you're paying in mortgage and expenses on the house is less than what you would be paying for an equivalent house that you would be renting, well, then you've improved your cash flow. And even though the property is not positively geared, it has a positive impact on your bank account. So I hope this has answered your question as to whether or not your house can be positively geared. I'm Ryan McLean from cashflowinvestor.com.au. Head over to cashflowinvestor.com.au/free to get our free 7-day masterclass series delivered directly to your inbox. So head over there. I look forward to speaking with you more in future episodes, and thanks for your time.